Hey everyone, it is Kate and I am back with my next chat as part of my Let's Talk About Sleep series. We are today in week 5 talking about short naps. So we've talked about the kind of fundamentals, we've talked about daytime, we talked about early rising, and today I really want to talk about the issue of short naps because it can be a real bane of the life for so many people. So short naps cause a lot of frustration, a lot of kind of anxiety and a lot of panic. So I just wanted to kind of go over my kind of view on short naps and my kind of approach to help you settle your little ones better for a nap and to lengthen that nap out. So the first thing I would say, and sometimes this is really helpful, is just to accept that there can be phases whereby your little one has just time where they just sleep for a short period of time, and that's kind of okay sometimes, and we just need to sort of accept it a little bit. I find that quite often this happens around about the 5-month mark. So if you've got a little one that's sleeping for a short period of time around that age, then that's kind of perhaps where what might be happening. It can be just a phase. I was talking to a client the other day and they were talking about the fact that their naps didn't consolidate until about sort of 7 to 8 months, and they got longer, but they did. And so realistically, the pressure is on to have these perfect naps and to have them kind of regularly flowing, and sometimes it doesn't work against the textbooks and the approach. So that's why I always talk about this flexible daytime routine. So the first thing to consider when you've got a short nap situation is how your child is settling and waking up, because if they're taking a long time to settle and they're waking up in kind of maybe a grumpy state, that's often overtiredness. So what you would do is you'd shorten the awake window, and that might help them to sleep for longer because they settle better. They're in a calmer state when they settle down to sleep, and then that helps them to have a more restful nap and wake up more refreshed. Normally what happens though is that we need to lengthen the awake time, and that would look like a child that sort of isn't settling very quickly and wakes up and is kind of still a bit groggy but wants to sleep, but you kind of know that actually they needed a bit more sleep pressure to stay asleep for kind of longer. So they might wake up and they're okay, but actually they probably needed to have a bit of a longer nap if they'd have stayed awake for longer. So then you would lengthen your awake window. So a lot of this stuff does refer back to those awake windows and knowing kind of where your average zone is. Obviously you can get hold of the download if you haven't got that already to find out where the zone is for your child, but most importantly look at their tired signs because that's what you respond to. So those are kind of the more sort of structural things. The other things are things like the sleep environment that we've touched on before in terms of making sure it's a dark room, comfy clothing, white noise to be using as well. Also consider kind of a bit of a wind down. So don't go from something really active into like plopping them down for a nap, because that can affect how they can settle. And then from a short nap management point of view, you want to be looking at kind of how you get them to go back to sleep, because sometimes, especially if they're waking up tired, you might want to spend a bit of time just trying to get them to resettle, because sometimes it's more important that they sleep for longer than how they kind of resettle. So we have talked before about the kind of the perfect settling. In a short nap scenario, you just want them to try and get to resettle. So step number 1 is to rush straight in there and, you know, the minute you hear them stir, and get them to sort of go back to sleep in any way possible. That could just be picking them up and holding them, or, you know, kind of encouraging them to sleep on longer on you, something along those lines. Try that sort of for 5-10 minutes. You might just know if they're going to resettle or not. So that's step number 1 to sort of help. And you keep doing that for a few days if you saw success, and then maybe stop and, you know, kind of hopefully they're sleeping for longer. So you're being very responsive then. The second option is a little bit less responsive, but it's an option for you if you find this might help, is to just leave them for 5 to 10 minutes, especially if they're whinging when they wake up, because sometimes they can just get themselves to go back to sleep and your job there is done. And so you could do that and again see how that kind of works, because their body might just learn then to sleep on a bit more. And then the third option is to try something called a wake to sleep model, which can be really successful, but you don't want to do it for a kind of a long time. So the wake to sleep model is saying, okay, my child goes to sleep for about half an hour for the short nap. I will go in there at like 20-25 minutes, wake them up to like a near state of consciousness, and then help them to go back to sleep again. So what you're doing is you're kind of waking them up from one part of the sleep cycle, interrupting that, and then you're getting them to go back into another sleep cycle to help them to sleep for longer. And the whole idea is that you're then naturally encouraging their body to settle for longer, getting used to kind of that rhythm of sleeping for a longer period of time, and then hopefully that will just then stretch out. So you probably try that, the wake to sleep model, for around about kind of 5 to 7 days perhaps, to see if that kind of helps. Those are my kind of 3 main things to help with a short nap. So, well, obviously we considered the timing angle of things and the environment, but the first one is to rush straight in and resettle them. The second one is just to leave them for a little bit longer. And then the third one is to try the kind of the wake to sleep model to see if that kind of helps. Those are quite simply just a quick kind of tip and advice to help settle it. Sometimes, like I say, they can be a little bit of time involved and they need to consolidate it. So hopefully that was helpful. It was just me popping on quickly just to explain more about that. We'll be back soon with the next kind of version. If you have got any kind of thoughts on what you'd like the next topic to be, then do get in touch. But please do drop me a line if you've got any sleep concerns, and I will see you again very soon. Take care. Bye bye.